that Shakespeare's plays are either comedies or tragedies. If they're a comedy, they end in a wedding, and if they're a tragedy, they end in a funeral. So I thought it was kind of a clever nod to this, that this episode of Doctor Who was entitled The Wedding of River Song, and yet we all knew it was going to address a funeral. So both comedy and tragedy. I thought it was very good. Mostly just because I love anachronism and steampunk and alternate histories so much. So seeing cars powered by hot air balloon and steam trains like running out of the Gherkin and into the pyramids, that was really cool for me. I wish we'd seen more of that. However, I was pleased to hear that crowds lined the mall as Holy Roman Emperor Winston Churchill returned to Buckingham Senate on his personal mammoth. I thought this episode did a really great job of using the idea that the Doctor lies and having him lie to Winston Churchill, and us knowing that the story we're seeing of the resolution of the impossible astronaut does have pieces omitted. I thought this season has done a lot to play off fear, and it was definitely horrifying for me seeing the headless monk's skulls like devouring that man. And I also loved seeing the Doctor look up in the Senate to find the ceiling just coated with the silence. I thought that was horrifying. Aspects of this episode that I enjoyed. Seeing Amy in a trouser suit with like the eye patch that allowed her to see the silence, being totally like badass woman in charge. I love that. I loved seeing her art and the way she depicted Rory looking so handsome and the Doctor being like, oh dear, what do I do with this? I love the idea that time was stopped. I thought that was portrayed really well and really interesting, that, you know, what happens when you try and change an unchangeable event, because the Doctor has said in the past that time can be rewritten, and so has River, although it would be in the future on her timeline. And with both of them being characters who lie, I really wasn't sure who to believe or what to believe. I thought it was incredibly bittersweet when the Doctor phones up to see if the Brigadier is around and hearing that he has passed on. I thought that was a wonderful reference to classic Who, and I think that's one thing that this episode did a great job of, is referencing classic Who. We've got the Daleks in there, we've got the Brigadier reference, and you know, we've got sort of the 1970s villains running around in suits. I think it had been hinted at throughout the series with the appearance of River Song that she was at some point in the future going to become the Doctor's wife, and also that she was in prison for killing him. I wasn't quite sure what the backstory was going to be totally on each of those two facts, but I'm glad that we have that now. I also for the first time really had sympathy for River Song in this episode, her saying that she would hurt more than everything in the universe to see the Doctor die. I thought that was really touching. I like that we finally had explanations for the eye patches, and I adored Rory still trying to fight, even despite the excruciating pain, just because he couldn't rip it off, so that he had to be able to remember the silence in order to defend everyone. I love the humour in Commando Amy being like, oh yeah, we need to get tea after this, and then get married. I was like, yeah, that's Amy and Rory always. And every time stream and every version of reality together, and Amy adoring Rory as much as he adores her, and I've always really loved that about them. I think these characters have changed and developed a lot throughout the past 2 seasons, and it's really interesting to see that we're not quite done with them yet. I did call that it was going to be the Doctor in a Doctor Tessellator on the beach. I called that, but I didn't get that the question that the Doctor was going to ask, the oldest question in the universe, the Doctor Who question. I missed that one. That was really clever. Props to Stephen Moffat. So you can let me know in the comments if you got that, or what you were suspecting. Or what you were suspecting the question would be. I actually thought that we might never find out. I feel like River really has become a central character in the series, far less of a companion and more like a colleague of the Doctor's, and it's really interesting to watch her motivation for being one of the good guys and for saving everyone, and for what she is willing to and not willing to sacrifice. I think that's always very interesting. So I am not quite as annoyed with River Song anymore. I thought the season was incredibly complicated, and yet the final episode was just very, very simple. And I wonder if it could have been any other way. I liked the simplicity, I liked that we got answers, we got explanations, and I loved the bit at the very end where we do find out that the Doctor has made the entire universe believe that he has died and has become so much less visible, and you know that he's really going to be doing work that goes unthanked in the future and not being this giant star anymore. I think that's going to take the show in a very interesting direction next season, and I can't wait to see that. I can't wait to see who his new companion is. I hope it's someone like Rita, or possibly a boy would be interesting, like just a boy or like a little kid, or I don't know. The one thing I did find a little hard to believe was that the Silence didn't check that the Doctor was dead. They're just like, oh yeah, it's the Doctor being dead. And, but what do I know? I also thought it was wonderful how we had the sort of red herring of whether the Doctor was going to be the alternate Ganger Doctor or whether he was going to be a tessellator Doctor on the beach, because let's be honest, he had to be one of the two. I thought it was interesting that they did choose to go with the Tesselector, and I thought that that proved that that organisation was not all bad and that they were on the Doctor's side, and them sort of being in on the secret that the Doctor is really alive also adds a very interesting direction where the show can go in the future. All in all, I mean, we had mammoths and Winston Churchill and the Silence and a Dalek and Amy in a really kick-ass business suit. And those were all wonderful things. I couldn't have asked for a more visually interesting final episode to this series, although I think seeing some more closure between Amy and Rory and the Doctor would have been slightly a bit rewarding. I wish the wedding scene had been a bit more elaborate, and I wasn't sure sometimes how the pacing was of the episode. I kept sort of looking at the clock and being like, oh wait, how much time do we have left? Wait, what? What's going on? Although this episode did have a slightly uneven feel to it, I really did enjoy this series, and I'm interested to see where the show will go next. Alright guys, thanks so much for sticking with my recaps this series, and as always you can discuss all of the episodes over in the forums on Doctor Who Online. And let me know in the comments whether you guessed what was going to happen in the scene on the beach or what the question was. Bye!